Hi lovelies, and welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. If you're brand new, my name is Candy. I am a tarot reader. I am also all sorts of witchery: green witch, garden witch, hearth witch, art witch. I'm a trained artist. All sorts of things are going on here, so you are very welcome, and thank you for landing in my little spot on the internet. Now today I am joining in with the wonderful Ivy the Occultist's 12 days of Yule. Now today's prompt is a great one. It's reflect on the last year of your practice. Now, because I am a tarot reader, I thought a really nice way to do would be to use my last year ahead spread that I pulled about this time last year. So using this deck, which is the glorious Gabby Angus West's Tarot Avatara, which is the deck based on the life and times and art and imagined diary entries of Frida Kahlo. So I pulled last December 12 cards. I'm going to use these 12 cards to talk about what happened in my practice. We're going to start with the card that I pulled for January 2023. I pulled the Four of Pentacles. The guidebook talks about her disillusionment in the amount of work for how little feedback she's getting. She uses the phrase hard work for little gain. But when I reviewed the card, I had to laugh because Frida looks like she's stuck actually in amongst the foliage with the town behind her. She's slightly removed, stuck in the foliage. And in January, the hedges, the 15-foot hedges on my front garden collapsed, blocking the pavement as well. It was like a forest crashed down on my head, and I really did feel like Frida looks in this card. It took me a week of solid work that nearly broke me. I've never been so broken by work, clearing and cutting and chainsawing and sawing through those hedges. It took me about 50 trips to the tip as well to get rid of it all. It was just so much work, such hard work for such little gain, because the front garden all year has looked a mess and I've not been able to get on top of it, and I felt a bit demoralised from it. So in real life it mirrored this amazingly. But what about my practice? Well, working out on the front driveway this year, there were loads of brambles, which I did start to clear until I saw how expensive blackberries were in the shops. £4 for like 12 blackberries, just ridiculous. So I decided to grow a whole row of brambles and let the blackberries grow. And doing that, brambles became a really, really important part of my spiritual practice. I ended up getting this book, which is by the amazing Corinne Boyer, Under the Bramble Arch, and I read about how the bramble is linked to the devil, how blackberries shouldn't be picked after September the 29th. You have to leave some for the devil, how the brambles can form arches, which I've seen on my driveway, through which magic can pass. They're like portals. We also got the most amazing harvest of blackberries from it this year. We filled up the freezer with bags of frozen blackberries. We made pies, and because of this, the bramble arch and the brambles and the thorns and the blackberries are all going to feature more strongly in my practice moving forward. So I think the mayhem and the hard work and the chaos out there inadvertently put a whole new plant into my green witchcraft, which I love. Okay, February was the Queen of Cups, the Queen of all emotion. The imagined diary entry for this card says, I have no answers, I'm just zoning out, I just need to flow. So no cooking, no sewing, no reading, no gardening. When I looked back on February, I had to laugh because I wanted to start in February to get back out into my magic garden, because gardening is a massive part of my witchcraft for me. And I couldn't, because the day I decided to go out and start working in the garden, we had unexpected snow. I literally was put in the same position as this, no gardening for me. So instead I spent lots of time on the altar. Somebody asked me to do a spell for them on my altar, which I built into my altar, which had the most amazing results as well. So that saw me doing spell work for the first time for somebody else. More work at the altar. I also spent a little bit more time doing grimoire work and journaling work. I actually went on to 3 lives as well, which I don't tend to do on YouTube, but about journaling and grimoire pages. So I couldn't do the gardening, so I just got lost in my imagination at the altar and with my journaling, and I was really pleased with how the journaling has come on this year. The grimoire, I've got new ideas for that. I have done some videos about tips for grimoiring as well, which I was really pleased with. I did some collage work with some Deccan work as well this year, and I want to continue that. I want my grimoire pages to be a bigger part of the channel and of my practice moving forward. For March, I pulled the Queen of Pentacles. The guidebook for this card talks about the fact that she loves cooking and she carries her art practice with her into a different room, into the kitchen. She calls her kitchen and her cooking as much a part of her artwork as her canvas work. I loved that idea in this card of taking your art or your spiritual practice to different rooms, but it's still being the same thing. And when I reviewed my year back, I did that in March. Having spent so much time in February and March doing grimoire work and working in the studio, I did loads more work as well around the Sheila and a gig quest that I'm doing at the moment and the voices that I'm picking up from visiting Sheila and a gigs. I spent so much time in the studio that I decided to build an altar space in my studio as well. It's that idea of my spiritual life needs to come with me from room to room, just like Frida's creativity needs to be viewed as coming with her from job to job and room to room in the home. I loved that comparison, so I opened up my studio space and honoured it in March as the meditation room it is, as the channeling room it is. I do channeled art, and as the exploration into spirituality that I do as an art witch. Just seems really fitting that a big part of my practice is an art witch, so it really did feel like I needed an altar in that room. Just really lovely to have that altar in the space now. So April, I pulled the Princess of Swords, and the write-up for this card is quite full on actually. Basically she's saying, don't push me, I'm capable of killing you if need be. This is fighting talk on this Princess of Swords, and the card goes on to talk about guarding against dangers of being naive about what people are like, because you'll soon get your bubble burst. It absolutely sums up where I was in April. In April, as an online witch and tarot person, we saw our space in April kind of fall apart a bit. There was a lot of angst online. It really made me wake up to my naivety. It's very different when you're trying to be open and to share your practice and your ideas. To suddenly get your bubble burst when you're trying to do that with a good heart is a horrible feeling, and it has made me build much stronger boundaries now. So I retreated to my altar again. I think over this year, working with the Morrigan at the altar has really made me realise what an important part of my practice the Morrigan is. And it's in moments like that. The Morrigan is a war goddess, she's a dark goddess, she's certainly somebody that will come out fighting, and she has really stepped in at times throughout the year. And I've continued and consistently used the Crow Tarot to have conversations with the Morrigan. This has continued to be an absolutely incredible deck within my practice. and it just gives me the support and the answers that I need when I'm working with the Morrigan. But a new deck that I added in this year, which has taken the conversations with the Morrigan to a completely different level, has been adding in these nature wisdom cards with it. I don't know what it is, guys, about these two decks, but these two decks together, feels like I have a direct line to my goddess with these two working together. So pulling a reading with the Crow Tarot cards, and then pulling these little mini cards around it, which have got all the writing on the back. Gosh, it's just been incredible. So that has been a really impacting, massively impacting addition to my altar and to my tarot practice and to my deity work that I'm really excited to continue with. In May, I had pulled the 8 of Swords, and after the upset of April, I felt lost for a while. The thing that pulled me back was Garden Arcana. I teamed up with the wonderful Thea over at Garden Goddess Tarot, and we did 7 weeks of finding the major arcana in our gardens. We're 2 gardeners either side of the ocean, and it was just wonderful. Loads of people joined in. I got to see gardens from all over the world, and my garden became my safe space when I was staying away from the drama. And just to be out there and to be working with flowers and to be growing and to be planning and to just be immersed in my spirit of place and the whispers from the tree in the garden, my birch tree. It was just wonderful. And taking tarot out into my garden, that's been one of the biggest impacts of on my practice this year. It just made me realise that I want to work so much more with flowers. I started, you can see how many notes are taken in these books. I started making my own flower essences this year, and I made them with charms and with tarot cards, or to immerse them with all those different energies. So between brambles and blackberries and flowers, it's been a really impacting green witchery year. The flower essences have been amazing. My key flowers that I connected with were not only the bramble and the blackberry, but also bindweed. Bindweed has been the most incredible plant for me to work with and to unravel myself from the tangles this year. So I've got jars like this. So this was the bindweed that I made. It was pulled with the Dreamer 7 tarot card. A coward portrays preparing, breaking, transformation and breaking bonds. Of course, then that has been put into one of these little ones. This is the key flower essence that I've been working with. So June, I then got the High Priestess. She looks like she's under an arch of pomegranates, but they look like roses to me, and I think the rose stepped in June, as it always does. I love my roses. I started working with a rose essence as well. This is by the amazing Sandy Humby, whose deck I also bought as well and started working with. This is the Rose Alchemy Oracle, which is just divine, and I really did need High Priestess energy for June because it was all change. My middle daughter finished school. She was suddenly at home. We went to visit rose gardens as well, so it was roses everywhere. My roses were in full flower. The rose really does take hold of me midsummer and working with the rose. And we did need, both of us needed to keep our intuition and our gut feeling absolutely fine honed, because she was making big decisions about next stages, about sixth form decisions. She decided to actually move completely out of county to an all-girls sixth form in Stratford upon Avon. So I'm in Shakespeare country now every day, and she was looking to me for advice, so we both needed to really hone our gut instincts on that. So it was all change, and I find change really difficult. So I did find myself leaning on tarot in this month, and I just think that High Priestess arch of pomegranates mirroring the rose arches that we visited and the roses that we worked with that month, just so comforting. So in July we see Frida standing in what looks like this wild forest, and again this is art imitating life, because I took 2 of my kids for a weekend to the Forest of Dean, and we walked the sculpture trails there, which was incredible, and we saw trees that were hundreds and hundreds of years old, which were so full of energy. The most poignant piece in the forest being this one, which is called the Cathedral Window, because this for me really symbolises the fact that the forest and the woodland really is my church. You will often find me in the woods. I have an altar in the woods. The woods and the beach, those are the 2 places that I feel most at peace. Now this card, the Princess of Pentacles, talks about like starting a business and harnessing energy for that business, and you can see she's harnessing the energy from the ground, and again it carried on that's what I carried on doing in the garden. I made lily flower essences, I made buttercup flower essences. The buttercup is about joy and confidence, and this is what I've been trying to develop over the year. I've been working with shadows around lack of self-confidence, so flowers and working with confidence, the buttercup calling. And it seems funny that a lot of these flowers that I picked are poisonous, and that has made me think about where my practice might move going forward as well. So we were at a forest in real life, but I also went exploring in Wales a lot, and I felt a lot of fae energy, a lot of trickster energy as well around me, but also an incredible call to the spirit of place. So much so, I mean, it's got really intense and clamouring now in my head to the point that I struggle to shut it down, and it's almost obsessive, like trying to track down where the voice is coming from, finding voices in nature, connecting with nature, and finding the stories of the voices that are coming in and who they are. I've been using my cards for that, and I have been tracking down what I call soul stories now, and I feel it is a big pull to the dead. There's death work coming into my practice, which I've never had before. I don't like the phrase ghost hunting. I like the phrase soul stories, which I use, and I've been sharing soul stories on my channel in the latter half of the year to show that kind of pull that I've got to go and visit places and find stories. So August, I got the Hanged Man, and oh boy is this card pertinent. This card talks in the guidebook about your life being turned on its head and just being stuck and choosing isolation because you can't cope with anything more than isolation, refusal of fun. And in this month we got GCSE results. We were hanging around for that. We were hanging around for knowing whether people had got into colleges of choice or not. My eldest daughter, who is disabled, it was all change for her because she's leaving school, and I was waiting to find out about funding. There was so much going on around my kids and schools and disability and funding that I was applying for that I got really overwhelmed. In this month I only made 2 videos on my YouTube channel. I just couldn't take on anything at all. I was totally and utterly overwhelmed. So September, the 10 of Cups, and after about 6 weeks of complete overwhelm, I suddenly felt the weight lift off me, and I came back to YouTube. And I think this is you guys. I think this is me finally coming out of the dark hole and coming back to community and just feeling how nice the community is to have around you. So I think after the upset of the early year, then overwhelm, then so much change in my personal life, I think this was the point at which I felt that pull back to community again. It was lovely. Next month, so October, I pulled the 5 of Wands. And October, although I was all excited to be back and wanted to make videos again, I just couldn't get out of the demands of jobs. My school run has now been extended now to 3.5 hours a day plus in the car, because I'm driving to Stratford every day. And with that time taken up, and all the demands of the house and housework, I just felt like I couldn't get to anything, and my practice again really struggled. You can see she's got wasps in a jar here, and it really did feel like the laundry and the driving and the demands and the school letters and the vacuuming and the dog walking and the cooking dinners, it did feel like they were all like wasps under a jar, and I couldn't get to anything. So again, a stall there. But what I did do in that month, I worked with my dolls. I picked up some amazing dolls this year that have been fantastic for me to do soul retrieval work, and some really in-depth show work. I'll show you the dolls on my desk here, and honestly, my work with my dolls this year has just been incredible and life-changing, really. So I continued working with the dolls. You can see dolls for soul retrieval work, the Mycene Barbie is for glamour work. We have a Merida to work with the Morrigan with, and these are different aspects, different parts of me as well, all on my desk. Dolls surrounded by magic art, that's how I roll. There's this needlepoint that I found in a charity shop, or my own work like this one, drawn to honour the animal energy I work with, or my deity work like this one I made for the Morrigan, Bridget and the Dagda, which is a mixed media ink piece. And let's not forget as well my tarot storytelling altar, which I do with different objects and the dolls, and there's elemental work going on here as well. So you can see the dolls have been massively important. And I also followed paths. There's paths on this card. I followed paths back to places like Hayden Hill, where I'd grown up, to track down soul stories that were calling to me for years, and that was amazing. I worked with the Barbara Walker Tarot at these places, and it really solidified for me at this point that working with voices and soul stories is something that I really want to do. And I have no choice really, because the voices are quite loud in my head, and the pull to places is incredibly loud. I think that spirit of place is the pull that pulls me in. And the stories that I found in soul stories were stories of people I think who've been bullied, which is very in keeping with the 5 of Wands. And then I thought about Inktober all through October. I didn't complete it, and I'm still doing it. I'm working in altered books, but I'm exploring times in my life when I felt bullied. And I think transforming books and altering books and doing map magic with my drawings is also a big part of my art witchery. So this really did fill up a lot of October. I've been working in this children's board book to explore those angst moments are so fitting for the 5 of Wands from my childhood, using a child's board book and altering that to put the story of toxic family systems in, and to aid my own healing, is also a massive part of my art witchery. So October did see me sitting and exploring 5 of Wands energy, but where it's most useful for me in my art studio. And you can see I'm hiding behind a teddy bear from a bullet here, all very apt. And then of course following paths and soul stories has led me all year to continue to follow the voices of the Sheila gigs that I've been visiting. I've been doing layered mixed media work and really channeling the story and letting the imagery lead me through the stories, not only of the Sheilas themselves, but of the spirit of place in the place where I find them, which is normally a graveyard. and the call of bones and the call of the dead again. It's something that I've only just realised is always there. So November is the Ace of Swords, which talks about the clarity of truth coming in. And I loved this card because the card itself reminded me of my holiday in Cyprus. I actually made a video about in November. I started something called Gratitude Stories, where I use tarot to retell a story of gratitude. I think gratitude practice has come in at the end of the year a lot more within my practice, and harnessing the power of gratitude. And then the King of Cups is for December, and I love this because I think in December, the work that I've done with the dowels and talking to friends, it's made me clear on some of the battles that I have with parts of myself that I won't accept. And for the King of Cups to come up in the month where I have that revelation, it's just incredible, really, because the King of Cups is totally in charge of steering the ship and accepts the whole ocean of emotions. I think for me, it was a case of me needing to call home to myself all the parts of me and check my emotions around them. So I think shadow work and using tarot for shadow work, using my dolls for shadow work, has given me a massive breakthrough in my mental health, really, by the end of the year. So there you have it. A year recap of my practice, what I did and what I didn't do this year, the directions that my practice has gone in, and just a look back on the whole year, told through the story of 12 cards for my year ahead spread. I think this is why I love doing a year ahead spread. Even if you don't use it through the year, it's always really interesting to look back via the lens of 12 cards to highlight where you've been and what you did, and it's just a really nice way of looking back. And yeah, I love this tarot as well. So that's it for today. Join me again tomorrow, guys. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.